This is Alan Kozin, the author of Got That Something, How the Beatles' I Want to Hold Your Hand Changed Everything. And you're listening to Fab Four Free for All, brackets, the brackets.
And welcome to another exciting edition of the Fab Four Free for All, the weekly podcast. Go figure. Come on, Rob, how about a yay?
Yay!
Rob gave a yay. I just went.
Oh, Tony, how about you? Go figure. I'm
doing it quiet. See, I'm Fat Lot of Good. I'm doing everybody who's listening on audio. I'm just clapping. So
yeah, we have our video going now, so
that's true.
Yes, and it's kind of cool because we've been able to use the video to get together and record more shows for you because we know you want it, or who knows if you want it. But anyway,
you got it. But we're going to do it anyway because we like
to do it anyway in spite of you.
Stuff. Right.
Anyway,
in spite of you, it's true. We'll make shows. It's true.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We don't like your imitations. We certainly don't like your singing.
Anyway. Don't quit your day job.
Right. Exactly. I am your host, moderator today. I'm your moderator for this show, Mitch Axelrod, and joining me, as they always do, and I'm so glad they do, are
Rob Leonard
and
Tony Traguardo.
And today we're going to actually expand on a thread that I had posted about a week or so ago about releasing Beatles stuff that has been unreleased to this point. And it got such a good thread going that we thought maybe we would do it as a show because we all started talking about it, and we really feel like it deserves its own show. A lot of you had some great points on whether things should be released because it's historical, or things shouldn't be released or should because it's curiosity. So I think it really led us, Tony and I were talking, Rob and I were talking, I don't know, Tony doesn't talk to Rob, so.
No, we talk.
No, I know, I'm just kidding. But we were.
Talk about you.
And yeah, they talk about me. Thank you. The Unloved Song Show again. Anyway, so we're going to call this show Please Release Me or Not, right? Because we're going to really discuss things that we feel are urban legend, as we put in that post, and what should be and shouldn't be released, and why we feel that they should be. And also, we're going to look at a few things that have been released and use them as a reference, whether they should have been, whether those are historical, or really, it really didn't matter that they were released. They were nice to hear once, like that Fly on the Wall disc and Let It Be Naked. Give me a break. This 20 minutes I'm never going to get back in my life.
Right.
But, so some of the stuff we just, we may not feel.
But I'd be curious how many people, not to sort of jump, when we were on topic, but I'd be curious to find out how many fans out there may think that Fly on the Wall disc was awesome. Was like a...
They may, because a lot of people may not have heard it. But if you've heard the full, 30 days of Get Back, then you know that wasn't the best they could have done, especially on an 80-minute CD.
Well, that's what bothered me about it. It was, it's 20 minutes, and they could have put another, we'll say 50 minutes on it, and maybe include like a very, like a jam song almost, just something that wasn't releasable really, but
although we know the Beatles were never a jam band.
Well, you know what I mean.
But that actually
something to mind that I might talk about.
Exactly. That leads exactly into some of the stuff. So it's a good segue, Rob. So let's talk a little bit about, let's go back a little bit further than the anthologies, as I mentioned. Let's go back to 1971. In 1971, Martin Lewis wrote an article about Beatles rarities, and to pad the article, he decided to make up 4 songs that he said were Beatle outtakes. And they really weren't, but they were Colliding Circles. They were Pink Litmus Paper Shirt. It was Deck Chair and Left is Right and Right is Wrong. And it's a long story. You can read about it on the internet. Look up Martin Lewis hoax, and you'll hear the whole thing. But it became part of Beatle lore because a lot of people picked that up and went, oh my God. And then people started trying to find those 4 unreleased songs.
Why does it strike me that it just seems like something that Martin Lewis would do? But anyway.
Yeah, well, it would. But
he did it as comedy. And the problem was no one had known anything. No one had gone through the tapes yet, or even anything like that. And
you know what though? I don't accept that. He used that years later as an excuse. And when you're supposedly writing a journalistic article,
well, he even admitted
you don't do something quote as comedy.
Correct, and he is a comedian, in more ways than one. But he did admit that he did pad the article. So once you say you padded an article, that doesn't become comedy anymore. That becomes fraud.
Yeah, right. That's shooting yourself down as a journalist.
And when you admit that in 1999, when he did his one-man show, he finally admitted it, and people stopped looking for it. But it became a joke to the point where some guy in New Jersey, a band in New Jersey named R. Stevie Moore or something like that, he actually did two versions of two of those songs. So, and then people went, "Oh my God, it's the Beatles." No, it wasn't. So that started a whole bunch of it actually didn't start, but it kept the unreleased stuff going.
I have to think,
looking for unreleased.
I have to think, to be honest, Mitch, that article in itself probably didn't start the roll going. I would say more likely than not. Well, it kept it going, but I would think twofold. More likely than not, I think when Martin's article was used as a reference for Harry Castleman,
and Wally Podrzyk.
Well, no, was they both? Did they both do the first book? Yeah.
They both did together.
All together.
Both books, yeah. So when that came out and those 4 songs were included in their list, I think that's when it really the idea of that was also in my opinion when that chasing down Beatle outtakes took hold, partly because a new generation of Beatle fans were just about to hit. You were just about to have the 76 you had the 73 resurgence with Red and the Blue. And I think even at that point, wasn't there an idea that Alan Klein was hunting for possibly wanting to use outtakes, and they all went, no, absolutely.
No, that was, I think, for the Hey Jude album, where they sort of put together the songs that hadn't come out yet officially on Capitol.
But there was a hint that Klein wanted to use outtakes at that point, though, right, Rob? Or wanted to look in the vault?
I'm not sure of that.
I'm not sure of the vault thing, but he wanted, because every album he would put out or help put out, he got paid for. So that's why the Hey Jude album came out, because he wanted to get some money. And it was only released in America, and it was not a bad. I mean, I love the Hey Jude album. I think it's a great compilation, and so I mean, I understand why Alan Klein did. He wanted money, which is what he always wanted. But yeah, I understand what you're talking about. I don't think they were going to go in the vaults yet. I don't think that early.
Okay,
it's just going to be stuff not released, like Rob said. Stuff that was released but not on an album.
I thought I had remembered reading that somewhere, but
I think you're right, Tony. I think I think 75 was the Altogether Now book, wasn't it?
Yeah, 75, and the contract ended with Capitol in 76. And once that contract ended, Capitol had the right to release stuff, and that's when Rock and Roll Music came out, and then Love Songs, and then
but they didn't have
Beatle ballads,
right to release unreleased stuff, though.
No.
They could have, and they didn't. Which I'm sort of glad they didn't.
Do you think they did at that point, Rob?
I don't think
they did. Beatles hadn't sued them yet, so they couldn't stop them if they wanted to. Fortunately, they didn't put anything out.
I'd be curious to find out.
Could they go to the vaults and just take any outtake? I don't think they were. I don't think the contract said you could have everything.
No, I think they were given creative control.
I think what happened when Paul stayed with Parlophone in Great Britain and Capitol until the Columbia contract, he was sort of overseeing it in a way that they weren't going to really try to release unreleased stuff at that point. Hey, think about it. The Sessions album supposed to come out in 1985. And that's pretty close to 77, 78. If you start thinking about it, they started to put it together before 85. And Leave My Kitten Alone almost came out before John got murdered as a single, and then they pulled it back. So
that's a good point too.
It is there. One thing I also think we're talking about looking for things is when John said in the Rolling Stone interview in 70. That he thought there was a live album, Beatles in Italy, which wasn't a live album, but it was an album called Beatles in Italy that had the show order on the album, but it was the studio tracks.
Right.
So I think that's also, how many people went looking for that record thinking oh my God, there's a live album out there we didn't know about.
Why do I have a feeling that, not to be funny, but I think I might have been one of them. I might have actually thought that.
Well, it
for
said
some
live
reason.
in Italy, and
Yeah,
And they had a
no, it
picture
didn't
of
say
them
like
on
said
stage.
the Beatles in Italy. It didn't say live in Italy. It just had the.
No, you're right.
well,
John
did,
thought
right,
it was a live album.
Yeah,
But
but
you could
the
see where
Beatles
he
in
was.
Italy. What are you doing in Italy? You're playing.
Right, and you could, and like Rob said, it had a concert photo. You said it had a concert
on the back.
Yeah,
yeah, on the back.
So
yeah, so
it was,
I think it's funny because everybody always points to Carnival of Light. That's the thing that everybody points to. And we all want to hear it. We all want to hear it. Why do we want to hear it? Because Paul said it's avant-garde. Mark Lewison has always said it's maybe worth hearing once and then you'll never want to hear it again. And I'm not being funny. That's what he said. He even said it. He was on the Word in Your Ear podcast last week. You could look it in. You could look
last
it up.
week as of this taping, so it'll be
As of
April
this
of
taping,
2020. Yeah,
correct. He was on a podcast, The Word in Your Ear, where again they brought it up, and he said the same thing. It was only worth hearing once. He heard it. It was okay, and it's not something that people are going to love or play more than once. And he did say Paul wanted it out on Anthology too. And the others vetoed him. Paul wanted it out because he wanted to show himself as the avant-garde one instead of John. And the others didn't want it out for the same reason.
right.
So, that's the thing of this whole show. It's Carnival of Light encompassed in one ball. Do we care? Should we care? And do we really need it? So,
well, do we want to tackle? Do you want to look at the two white elephants in the room? You brought up Carnival of Light. The two big ones. I mean, Rob, for you, Carnival of Light, could you care less? Really?
At this point, you want to hear it. I think, it's like hearing the 27-minute version of Helter Skelter.
The other white elephant.
one.
We got the 6-minute version on Anthology 3.
Yep.
And then the same take goes to 12 minutes on the White Album Outtakes.
And Giles said that the 27 is the same thing as take 2.
Yeah, and it's just longer.
And Mark said the exact same thing. Mark said if you want to hear the 27-minute version, play the 12-minute one twice.
So,
right.
Do you need to hear that, Rob?
What?
Do you need to hear it?
Do I need to hear it? No, actually, I don't. There are other things I prefer, but at this point, it's become like this big
myth.
thing. Oh, we got to hear it. It's
a myth.
Really, I wouldn't call it a myth. It becomes people talk about something they've never heard, so they start adding to it. And then they said, oh, well, this must have been really really interesting because the Beatles did it. Well, not everything the Beatles did was totally interesting. That might be one of them. And maybe what it was for a show, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe without that show, you don't have
context.
The context.
Well,
where it probably would have been good in the Love Show. Some part of it. Because that would have been probably a place to put it. Maybe not all 12 minutes.
Or it should have been released as a single in Barcelona. No, because the myth or the story is John screaming Barcelona repeatedly throughout. But I think, and I was talking with Mitch about this, off mic, off camera.
Right.
But we were saying, and Rob, if you're okay with my saying, I think among the three of us, I've probably been the most profound collector of the undergrounds, of the bootleg stuff. And
you have been.
And more in that world. So it's a strange and an interesting perspective for me, because from a historic standpoint, I would be interested in hearing Carnival of Light, but I have absolutely no expectation of it being something I'm going to enjoy.
Like the Fly on the Wall disc.
Well, no, the Fly on the Wall disc you actually thought was going to be something interesting.
Oh,
you heard it was coming out. Where I'm going with Carnival of Light is that, because again, Mitch, if you told me you're taking 20 minutes of the Let It Be sessions and you're going to have an extra disc of cool stuff from the session. First of all, we didn't know it was going to run 20 minutes until right when it came out, and then we all went WTF.
Right.
And then the stuff that's on it is crap for the most part.
Why the face, right?
What's that?
WTF, why the face?
Why the face?
Yeah.
But I think the idea of Carnival of Light and Helter Skelter is from the historian's perspective. I'd be genuinely interested in hearing both.
just maybe to find out where their heads were at.
Well,
and they're playing.
Just to satisfy the curiosity that just there's an extant piece of Beatle tape, Helter Skelter, they thought enough of after that 20-minute jam to do something, 27-minute, to do something with it, mold it, and shape it into a song.
And make it something different.
Right.
But that even the Beatles didn't think that what they did for 27 minutes was worth it.
Carnival of Light, we've heard John's audio, pastiche. Now we would be hearing Paul's. So it's interesting from that perspective. But at the same time, like there's not, I think so much of it has to do with whether or not anything that's released or not released is put into some form of context. They did an interesting job with the anthology, but the anthology could have been done in a bunch of different ways. Were we delighted when it came out? Yeah, sure. But
yes,
and we'll get to this, I'm sure. But
we will.
But I think a lot of it is all about context. And to me, and again, I'll say this now and get this out front early. I've said from the beginning that if they want to do something that would be mind-blowing, it would be give us a subscription series or give us, here's everything that we've got. You can either buy it a la carte. You could buy it. You don't get cover art. You don't get, you want the history of the track? For God's sake, the tracks. There are no, that we know of, there are no unreleased songs anymore that we know of. There are no songs. Here's a new title you've never heard of by the Beatles, and it's in the vault hiding somewhere.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And Tony, I think you said something very interesting in the sense that we're getting to the point with the Beatles and other bands too, where it's becoming history. It's not just the music anymore. There are people like us and other people doing shows like us or writing books, and it's a look back at history as much as it's about the music. It's like, let's say Revolution number 9 was never released or was cut down to 4 minutes. Would we care? Would we say, oh, we got to hear that. We got to hear that. Yeah, we probably would. But then when we'd hear it, we'd say, what the hell's going on here? But it's getting to be history more and more. And think about, Tony, we're both disc jockeys. No offense, Mitch.
No,
when we play, how many times in your career, Tony, have you played Revolution 9 on your show when you had your Beatles show?
I've played it only a handful of times. Most
a handful. I play it once a year as almost like, okay, it's time to play it, unless someone requests it, and then usually they're just testing me at that point. But it's become like a history thing almost at this point, because think about it, we're heading to 60 years. That's a long time. And the fact that Paul and Ringo are alive is excellent, and they can still comment on it if they want to. But we're getting to the point where we're going to be looking back at this more and more as history, and radio's not going to be playing much of this as much as it used to be, even though the Beatles still sell, the biggest selling band in the world. A lot of it's turning to history. And you're right. It'd be great to say, okay, give me a download of these songs. But will they do it?
Let me. Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
Revolution number 9. Revolution number 9, the thing about Revolution number 9 is that it is a rreleased piece. So there's that mentality that you're not going to take it away from me. You're not going to say, well, to me, if you describe to me what Revolution number 9 was, and before I knew, and not to be funny, but before I knew there was a Carnival of Light and that Paul had done this audio verite thing, and you said, oh well, John did one too. If Revolution number 9 was never out, I would want to hear both Carnival of Light and Revolution number 9 together in one little download package, 20-minute CD single, 25-minute CD single. I'd want to hear Paul's audio verite and John's audio verite at one time. But
maybe
the fact that Revolution number 9, we have it and it's in a context.
Yes, you're right.
It's part of the White Album. We look at something like that, we say, well, that couldn't be an outtake. That could never be an outtake. We have that already.
Right. No, you're right.
What if they would have put Carnival of Light on Pepper as like a Revolution number 9? Then you have it in context.
So it wouldn't have fit on Pepper, though. It wouldn't have fit on Pepper.
How do you know? We don't know what it is.
It's 12 minutes. The Beatles never had 12 minutes.
Never. Yeah. And it's not just that, Mitch, but you have to figure too, it's now part of it is the history aspect, but it's always going to be out of context because like Rob was saying, it's part of a visual program that happened. So no matter what, if we get it, no matter what, it was part of a happening. Like it wasn't even, like Paul was explaining that it wasn't even synchronized to anything. It wasn't synchronized to movement. It wasn't synchronized to what was going to happen on the screen because it was working with oils and working with all kinds of media was going to be different an experience every time. His was just the audio portion of an experience. So yeah, I mean, would it still be interesting to hear? Okay, but the idea being like, and it's back to that idea too. It's us, and I won't say versus, but it's us on this side, and it's the average fan. With all due respect to the average fan, on that side, would they care less? Would you have gotten people freaking out if 15 minutes of disc 2 of Anthology 2 was taken up by Carnival of Light?
I'd be angry. I mean, think about Anthology 1. How many people bought it? But the first 20 songs or 15 songs have, audio quality problems. Really, but fans were loving it.
I want to talk about that.
But if you look at like a used record store, you always find Anthology 1 more than 2 or 3.
Right. Sure. Well, let's talk about that a minute. Not the Anthology per se, because we don't want to review Anthology, but what was on Anthology, to me and to a lot of people, was more of a historical presence or was more of a historical significance, not presence, than Carnival of Light. You got That'll Be the Day and In Spite of All the Danger, which we never heard any Quarrymen songs.
Right.
Now we are, or we do. We have them now. They're released. Audio quality, officially.
Yeah.
Quality, they stink. But that is history to me because like as of this taping also, we just a couple of weeks ago got that Quarrymen picture, which we've never seen. We've had a couple of Quarrymen pictures, but any new picture of the Quarrymen, which is pre-Beatles, is historical. And that, to me, is much more significant than hearing Carnival of Light because those were things that we've never, ever thought we'd have. And it wasn't the Beatles. It was the Quarrymen. It was pre-Beatles. Right. So for me, there's two things. There's historical versus curiosity, and there's also need versus want. We may want it like Carnival of Light, but we don't need it. And we probably, after we hear it, we'll definitely be like, well, we didn't need to hear that. It was nice. We were curious to hear it. But historical versus curiosity also, I think the historical part, I think we do need it to put the Beatles in perspective where they went after, In Spite of All the, and don't forget, In Spite of All the Danger is the only Paul and George song.
Right,
ever.
right. No.
Historical, that's important.
You bring up an interesting point too, Mitch, because but I'm just saying you brought up an interesting point in the sense that, and look, we have the deepest respect for Mark Lewison, and we know Mark. We've had Mark on the show. Yeah, the fact that Mark brushed it away honestly kills a lot of my interest in it. I'll tell you why. There was part of me that always...
We're talking about Carnival of Light, right?
Yes.
Carnival of Light.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Before I heard Mark address it and talk about it, I always thought to myself, the Beatles, like most other artists, are the worst. They have the worst memories about their own careers and what they did musically and what albums.
Well, not John and George, but they're gone.
But George still, I think that was on Revolve or Robo with Soul, whatever.
Well, yeah, but
that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like forgetting context of things, forgetting certain stuff. So to me, Carnival of Light always had this little air of, what if there's something in there, Carnival of Light, that gave us a clue of something else that was going to happen later.
Of the new direction?
Well, no,
troublemaker.
You know what I mean? But where I'm going is, what if at some point in Carnival of Light, there are a series of noises that
were on Pepper,
sounded like something on the White Album, or
when was Carnival of Light?
67.
During the Summer of Love.
Right.
So what if, you heard Paul screaming somewhere and it was, oh, well, look, he said, can you take me back where I came from? Like, who knew? But the fact that Mark so definitively just went, feh, like,
Right. You'll hear it. You won't care anymore.
means that it probably has no historical significance at all.
And that's a good point.
Otherwise, Mark would have been like, you know what? You don't need to hear it, but I'm just going to tell you there's a couple of interesting things that are of historical.
Right. It leads to the White Album. It leads to Abbey Road. It leads to Hello, Goodbye, or whatever.
There's a guitar lick that repeats that comes back in,
At that point,
dumping sounds that are in Krina Crore. I don't know, but
well, think about it. Think about like the Beatles is in America, the Mayos Brothers thing, and there's something where John's playing some Pagoda thing.
Yeah,
and the thing sounds just like the beginning of Strawberry Fields Forever, 3 years early, or 2 years early.
Look at the BBC.
That's something to look at.
Look at the BBC. The BBC. Don't pass me by. Don't make me cry. Don't make me
right.
Darling, I got the ice cream for you. That's 1964.
Right.
Yeah.
But Ringo always said that he wrote that earlier.
Right. But I mean,
and now you heard it.
Paul said he was helping him write it. I think it was more like 63. But
yeah, he says, Paul, you're going to help me with that. And he goes, Paul, come on, help me. You promised. Yeah. You promised.
Well, you know what, Tony? Another thing that when we're talking about history and not history, so to speak, is the way George Martin did the anthologies.
Yes.
He took pieces of songs and made complete songs out of them. And
for better or for worse, and we'll get into that too, Rob.
Right, but I personally like that because I would rather have a new song based on bits and pieces because the Beatles did it anyway with their own stuff. Strawberry Fields, I Want You, She's So Heavy are two of the more famous ones. But Giles really hasn't done that where he pieces together bits of songs to get a new song. He's basically been more like, and I'm not sure if he was told this, we don't know this part, but I know some people are angry with the anthology because George Martin did this, and we have the bootlegs, and not everyone wants to hear the bootlegs, the breakdown, especially when you're selling this as mainstream stuff. You're not selling this to the fans. You were selling it because a lot of people watched the anthology, and they said, okay, I'm going to buy the discs.
Right.
And they dumped 6 discs in a matter of 6 months, really, if you think about it.
But are we at a point now, though, where the idea, because combining what everybody's talking about, combining with the idea too of, again, my being very much a bootleg collector.
Yes.
Are we at a point now where it's time to reevaluate the approach to things? Discs are not the way to go anymore. Most artists are doing profound downloads. Dylan is doing 18 disc sets. At a blink of an eye, 16 disc, 14 disc sets. Apple does what they do, and don't get me wrong, I think Giles' work on the 3 box sets have been great. Really, I do too,
and maybe that's the new way of doing it now. You do it that way.
But the question is now, I look at some of the Frankensteins and I don't like them.
I agree. But let's hold off on talking about exact which ones because I think we should, we'll take a break and then we'll come back if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So you know what? Let's take a break right now, and we will be back. We'll talk about specific songs that have been released, and did we need them? Did we care? Do we like them? And do we want more? So we'll be right back on the Fab Four Free For All.
Hi, folks. This is Tony from Fab 4 Free For All. As Mitch has mentioned several times, the cast of Fab 4 Free For All do not profit in any way doing these shows for all of you. In fact, we actually lose money because of studio time and other production expenses. Now, we have looked into show sponsors, but for a number of reasons, we've decided it would be in the best interest of all of us, including you, our listeners, not to have sponsored ads in our shows. So, what we've done is set up a Patreon account. Patreon is a crowdfunding platform that allows artists to obtain funding from patrons on a recurring basis. Now, it can be as little or as much as you think you can send to us for the work that we put into providing quality Fab 4 Free-for-All shows. Now, we know that we have thousands of worldwide listeners, and if each of you just contributed $1 a month, that's just 25 cents per episode, we would have enough to retire and not have to do these shows. Sorry. Seriously, though, we've gotten some great feedback from everyone about how much these shows mean to you, and we feel the same way. But it would be nice if we could break even in terms of cost so that we can continue to bring these shows to you in a timely fashion. Yeah, I know, we can be delayed every once in a while, but that's because, as John Lennon so beautifully said, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. But we do vow to make every effort to have a quality show to you every week. We only ask that everyone go and visit patreon.com to at least check out what it's all about and to see if you can contribute a little something in return for all the hard work and effort that we put into these shows for you. Just do a search for Fab 4 Free For All and tell us that you give a buck about what we do. Thanks to all of you for being such great, loyal listeners.
And we are back, and we've been talking about releasing some unreleased stuff and what's been released, and we're going to continue. The one thing I wanted to talk about before we go forward is we forgot to mention, and a bunch of you mentioned it on the thread, that, and I did too, and it was cut down pretty quickly, if the Beatles are releasing some stuff that we don't think is great, does it ruin their legacy at all or tarnish any part of their legacy? And everybody quickly said no, and just because they do that, it's historical, and we've talked about that, so it doesn't ruin their legacy. They've released some songs that, let's face it, are crap, or in my eyes are crap.
Not in the regular catalog. You're talking about
they've released some songs in the regular catalog that are not up to par with the greatness of the Beatles, and that didn't ruin their legacy. So I don't think anything they'd release, even if it was garbage, would really tarnish the legacy of the Beatles. And let's get into some of the stuff, because I think once we start naming some songs that have been released, we can discuss this point further.
Well, when the anthologies came out, and I was mentioning, George Martin made one song out of many, which I appreciated. And one of the things that with the Pepper and the White Album and Abbey Road, and I assume will happen with Let It Be, or Get Back Now, is the fact that you had to buy the box set to get all those songs. Now, some of them might be on Spotify, but the 2-disc set of each of those, the second disc has some pretty good versions as alternate takes, where the box set might have some stuff that only hardcore fans would want. And I think that's part of the good part about how they're doing it. So if the general fan were to buy the 2 CD set, for whatever reason, cost, or they're not interested a lot, at least that second disc is going to be pretty good. It's not going to be real bad leftovers per se.
Got it.
So I think that's the big difference where, the difference. And like I said, I don't know if Giles has been told, don't piece together like your dad did. We let him do it. We don't know.
It's appropriate for the boxes.
Well, it'd be nice if you could, but you know what? There wasn't as much that you could piece together, maybe, because some of it's already been pieced together. So,
yeah.
But I know, that's the thing I noticed. Just something I noticed.
Tony, you were going to talk?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I still had my train of thought, but I think, what you're talking about legacy, etc. Yeah. I think the idea is that, and I wrote it when I did my thesis for being a librarian, which is what I do in the day job. I'd written a whole thing about the fact that if we found a Beethoven 10th Symphony written on paper, it would be, every library in the world would have it, every orchestra in the world would have it, it would be widely distributed, everyone would be performing it, and it even had his notes, like, oh, here's like my working copies and my working notes, oh my God. And even if it wasn't up to the other 9, but you went, wow, new Beethoven, the point is that only comes out on paper. That's only available on paper. Beethoven wasn't able to go, all right, let's roll tape for take 2. Not happening. With the Beatles, their history, and it's not just the Beatles, every group from the recorded musical era, their history and their legacy can only lie in recordings. Most of these guys didn't write music. Yes, you get George Martin scores, etc. So for me, from the historic standpoint, nothing can really ruin the legacy, because you know what? If you have a ridiculous start to, I'm going to pull in a random track to Tell Me What You See, and you go, oh my God, that was awful.
Yeah.
Well, it became Tell Me What You See. So
Right.
the history between the take one that's miserable to the take, and this is not, folks, don't look at your Lewison book because I'm pulling the wrong number out. And you look at take 12, the final, which is the really good one, there had to have been growth. Now, for me, if you're going to put out an outtakes box, you generally don't want to put take one, the crap one. From a history standpoint, if you gave me the option of buying a set of downloads of Tell Me What You See, the recording session, I would buy the whole thing, because I want to hear 1 through 12.
Where the heads were at.
I may never listen to 1 again. I may think, wow, 6 was really interesting. So that's why, in a way, I find that going back to like the Frankenstein that was Anthology, we need to reassess the whole thing again. And I know one thing that Apple said, we don't give about what the bootleggers do. That's right from the mouth of a wonderful gentleman from Apple, and we can relate to that. I mean, we've got a good relationship with the guys at Apple, and we understand where they come from with it. So to say we don't give it about but you know what? We had discussed it early on. Well, are you going to give us all the Escher demos because the bootleggers have all the Escher demos?
Right.
And the response was, you know what? If one of them is shite, it's not going to come out because we don't. But guess what? In the end, we got all the Escher demos. Truthfully, none of them are shite. Really, they're all interesting as heck.
Right.
But some of them are better than the released versions, like what's the new Mary Jane?
But had they figured out that one of them was crap,
we may not have gotten.
Collectors have felt knowing that there are 23 Escher demos that we all know about, but they're only going to give us 22 Escher. I'm so sorry. I've been calling him Escher, since we
I know.
heard of it. But there were 23 Escher demos that exist, and we only got 22. So
people would have been complaining. Where is it? I know.
So they're Apple's in a no-win situation as it is.
Correct.
That's right.
But to look at some of the things, like I look back on Anthology, and there is some stuff, like there's a take 4 of Fool on the Hill. I'm just throwing some stuff out there. Yeah. Ringo is all over the drum kit. It's a mess. It's probably not Ringo's. My question is, did Paul give Ringo any direction where to go? It's a mess. But I look at that take and I go, we got the demo 3 songs earlier, which is lovely. Did we need take 4?
No.
Because Paul said he went into the studio and he had to teach the others how to do it. So it was probably in the process of teaching how to get to the final version.
But he hadn't done it.
But did we need that?
Right. So
I know.
Like stuff like the Hello Goodbye that was mixed to enhance what we didn't hear in the lead. And again,
we got the George Harrison. We got the George Harrison lead that we never heard.
We did, which is fun, but I don't know. And
that's different, Tony, because with a Hello Goodbye with the George Harrison lead, now we get to the point where you're seeing the creative piece of the Beatles, and that's different.
Yes, but with that particular take, I would love it if you had done something else to make it different. Like, in other words, strip away some stuff. Like, basically, in the liner notes, it said something to the effect of, it has been mixed for your pleasure to enhance things that were not in the released version. Fine. But take out some stuff that was in the released version and let me there were
you're seeing
that were done, like, and then, like, again, Don't Pass Me By. It's fun, but musically it's a mess.
It is, but you got to give Ringo something on that. Which I think was interesting, Lady Madonna with all the extra horn bits, which I thought made it a little more interesting. Does it make it a better song? No, they were smart to take them out. So I understand and that's part of it too. We know about this stuff. We know about this stuff. We've read the books and we've heard, stuff before the anthology came out.
Yes, and that's another thing too. If we had not, like, two things, and then only because this stuff's been swimming in my head. First of all, if we had never heard, like to us, Sessions whet our appetites amazingly. When we got that bootleg, our heads exploded.
Yeah.
Yes.
And why? Because we now knew about like, If You've Got Troubles, what? You know, we didn't even know that, I don't even know if I think that title was in Castleman, one of the Castleman Podrzik books, maybe.
I don't remember.
But I think one thing that is fascinating about the unreleased stuff is it also lends itself to letting you realize how much of the ensemble, especially early on, George Martin was. I say that because I was talking to Mitch the other day about the idea that if you listen to some of those early takes, and what comes to mind is like the No Reply, the I'll Be Back as the Waltz, the original And I Love Her, they're really, really fascinating takes. And the truth is, had they been recorded like that in the final analysis, the Beatles would still have been eons ahead from performance and music standpoint from most of what they were competing with out there in the British music world.
Right.
But you listen to some of the Beatles arrangements when they first bring a song in, and it's a little bit Mickey Most. It's a little bit like every other British band at the time, but better songs.
Yeah.
Once you get them in the studio with George Martin, and whether it was George saying, oh, you know, boys, maybe we try it this way, or it was just them being in that room with George Martin, with
Or
that,
each other.
Or each other, exactly.
Right.
Or
No, I agree with both of this.
But the Four-Headed Monster and adding in George Martin took what those guys did and elevated it to the Beatles. So for me, one thing that I especially treasure about that, and why I also don't love the Frankensteins, because I just want I want the take to just finish. I want to hear a breakdown. There are a few instances where they go to a fade. You know what? An outtake didn't fade. An outtake went to a breakdown.
Right.
You
Well, you know what?
a fade.
The This Boy that's on the EP, that take 12 and 13. Those are interesting. That those two are not completed takes, and they're sort of just having fun in the studio. And I think that was part of it. But then again, they never finished it, and it's interesting how he chose that and it ended up on the EP. But to me, at the same time, when the bootleg came out of the original Can't Buy Me Love or One After 909, and we heard the different parts where you're thinking, okay, we can edit this together. And that's what happened on the Anthology. You know, the original bootleg had it, you know, each take along the way, but it doesn't make it a better version until you edit it together.
I don't agree with that, to be honest.
Well,
I know what you're saying, but I don't necessarily.
Well, hang on. Let's go a little bit back. Instead of just willy-nilly throwing songs out, let's try to go in order here. So let me start. We've already talked about That'll Be the Day and In Spite of All the Danger. It's historical. You definitely need it. All right? That's something you need as a Beatle fan. Whether you listen to it again or not, okay. But you know what? Historically, it works. You know, and we're not going to go through everything, but a couple of things I noticed. The Decca sessions, you need that again. That's historical. They were turned down. So you get it all? No. But if we could get it all in a download, as Tony suggested, that would be great.
But here's my question. Why do you give us three of the more humorous tracks that were clearly reasons why they might not have been accepted? Why do you give us, I mean, don't get me wrong,
exactly what you just
love
said.
them.
Yeah, but you just said it, Tony. That was clearly the reason they were turned down.
But from a musical standpoint, I would love to have heard.
They were turned down for a reason. If you give them better stuff, if you give us better stuff in the Decca sessions on Anthology, okay, for instance, you give us their best stuff. You go, you know, maybe the Decca was wrong, but if you're just going to give us a few because that's all you have to put on the Anthology and you're not going to give us the full thing, well, then you give us the reason they were turned down.
Do you also give us that because it puts George Martin in a better light?
Maybe. I mean,
but also, part of it also is if they released all 15 songs, and then the pacing of the album changes.
Well, the Anthology.
And I think, the Anthology. So there's certain pacing they were doing too with this.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the things about it, which which I was appreciative of. It starts off with "That'll Be the Day," which sounds pretty damn good considering the acetate was played, all those times. But you have to get to, the 63 stuff and then the 64 stuff. And, I was happy that Pete Best was even on these records, just to
that's
show
historical as well.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
Because Pete Best was a Beatle, whether the Beatles like it or not. And Pete Best liked it because
But the question is, though, it's back to that idea, Rob, that we, and again, we're looking at the topic. I think we're looking at the topic in a good way, but we're looking with hindsight and we're looking forward. So the idea being that, like, granted, you're right, you couldn't take the 15 Decca audition tracks and put them on a record and obviously have it not like completely destroy the flow.
Right.
But at the same time, the anthologies are now, it's 25 years ago.
I know. It's hard to believe.
So do you look at that now and you say, okay, you know what, the anthologies, because now you notice like they try not to replicate a lot of the stuff that are on the anthologies on the box set.
That's true.
Great.
That's true.
So yeah, you're keeping the anthologies in print, but why not go back and say, let's do the anthology download and where we create.
Don't even call it the anthology download.
Well, you're not going to put out an anthology. Oh, I see what you mean.
No, you don't even have to call it anthology. If you know what? You could just say to the fans, guess what, guys? We know some of the tracks were on anthology, but now we're going to give you a download of the full Decca sessions. Here you go.
Or the Decca sessions, truth be told. I mean,
I'm just saying Decca sessions.
But even those.
Because that should be released. That's part of the topic. The Decca sessions, all of it, whether you have the bootlegs or not, let's just assume that the bootlegs are not there. Because a lot of fans don't have access to bootlegs, okay? Some of them do and some of them don't. So assuming that we have to go under the assumption that people don't have them and that you want them. So now if you know there's 12 more songs that we didn't get, or however many, if Apple says to you tomorrow, we're going to give you the full Decca sessions clean and in good shape, have fun with it for $10 or whatever it is, I buy it because now you're getting an official release, just like they did of that bootleg 63 where you heard all the studio sessions of everything. Do we need 50 studio sessions of Thank You Girl from March 5th? No, but some of them are cool. So again, I think releasing the Decca is something that I think should be done, and started and didn't finish.
I wonder what the copyright situation is in Britain about that stuff, because we're heading towards 60 years, and I know the British copyright law is different, and some of the reasons why you have these box sets is to sort of claim copyright on this stuff. That's why the 63 bootleg thing came out. That's why Dylan puts out 18 discs of concerts, and the Beach Boys have been doing that also. Each year there's a
good one.
Stones,
yeah,
but not
Stones
subsequent to that, and not anything after 2013, Rob.
I know that they're right, but they've also now
the Stones did one in 19.
No, the Mets, the Beatles.
Oh, right.
The Mets. Where'd that come? Sorry,
but they've done a lot of things to reclaim. They put out Shea Stadium as a separate film with the 8 days a week.
But it's not out.
It wasn't released, but it showed the theaters. So there's, we don't know the whole copyright situation and the difference.
True.
It could be put out as a download.
Right. You know what I would have liked, and it didn't show up on the anthology? The day that Paul McCartney met John Lennon in 1957.
20 Flight Rock?
Well, not Paul, not that. No, there was a guy who was at the evening show that the Quarrymen played, which was John and the rest of the guys. And he taped a couple of songs.
How do we know they exist?
Because they were auctioned. And they played part of it. And
but was that prior to 1995, Rob? I mean, so I'm saying.
That I'm not sure, but you know where it could have been. Well, actually, I think it was talked about before that. It was actually could have been on the John Lennon anthology since it's really John Lennon.
Sure.
I'm not sure the date on that. But that's something I would like to see come out, just to hear it. Though, from what we've heard, it was like, there's a lot of cavernous noise in it.
It doesn't matter. That's still historical.
Cavernous noise. Good pun. Sorry.
Hold it. Okay, you just allowed me to come in on this one. You know what I'd love to see released, and I don't know how it sounds. In 1961, someone recorded the Beatles at the Cavern. Paul McCartney bought the tape in 1985. We know that for a fact.
Right.
Somewhere, it never was even considered, I guess, for the anthology. Does it mean it sounds really bad? And with today's technology, which is a lot better to clean things up, would it be something to maybe be fixed at this point? But of course, Pete Best is on the drums too.
Well, let's be realistic. I mean, I know this is something that Mitch isn't fond of, but I've got to say, the most recent cleanups, I think, of the top of the Star Club have sound great.
Well, infinitely better than they did.
They sound better than they did, but I mean, but by a long shot.
Yeah.
They sound better than the Linga Song LP.
Yeah, well, that's a different.
No, but you've got to remember that to most fans, most casual fans, the last thing they have of the Star Club recordings is the Linga Song vinyls.
Yeah, the Pickwick and
or the Sony repressings, which were miserable.
They don't have the Bear family.
Yeah, right. Well, no, there was no Bear family of the Star Club.
No, there wasn't.
No, the Bear family was the Tony Sheridan.
Oh, right.
Yeah, two CD set. Great
Star
booklet.
Club, to my knowledge, has not been legitimately re-released since the Linga Song release.
And again,
Sony released it as a two CD set, and then
not complete.
George Harrison went to court on it. He was, as he said, he got the short stick.
Yeah,
he drew the short stick.
He drew the short stick. But the truth is, though, look, man, there's history. It's not extremely well recorded, but Sweet Jumpin', geez, I've played a couple of tracks, from that on my show. That's a band that's on fire. That's a band that's on fire.
So here's something.
You lit a condom, but still, they're on fire.
And they got thrown out. No, but here's something, though. A song like Leave My Kitten Alone, that was something that came out of Anthology that just blew the crap out of everybody. It did.
That came out of Sessions, though, Mitch. You got to remember that. I mean, not that it came out of we got it in an Anthology, but that was one of the first pulls. Like, that was like,
Yes.
There was
it did come out of Sessions, you're right. But officially, it was released on Anthology and in a different version, too.
Right.
Right.
But quite honestly, if there was something there, like if you know what to do, the demo, George's demo from Anthology 1, if there was another song on any one of the three anthologies or in their catalog right now or in the vault, that was something like Leave My Kitten Alone, which we know there's not.
No.
Unless Colliding Circles is one of them. But no, but if we ever get something like that, all of a sudden something is found at the end of a tape and it's like Leave My Kitten Alone, that to me is the epitome of it should be released. And I'm glad Apple did, because if it wasn't on Sessions, I'm not so sure we would have gotten it on Anthology 1.
What? But Leave My Kitten Alone?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we would have gotten
come on. That's fire.
I know. Listen.
How could if they had not put that on?
No, yeah.
How would we have known?
Well, hold it. First of all, Scott Muni played it in '82, I think it was. So he played it before anyone else on WNEW.
They would have had to be brain dead to not put it
And
out.
I remember flipping out on that. It was like, oh my God, this is fantastic.
It was going to be the single.
Oh, wait, this just in. I got a pink litmus paper shirt. I got a pink. Oh, wow. There you go. Sorry.
I'm going to Colliding Circles all over you.
No, I mean, I think I think if you're going to take the anthology, I know you're going in order, but
well, I'm not.
We've got the Let It Be box set coming out. Now, I'm looking forward to it. There's another lose-lose situation for them.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
They can't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I trust that Giles is going to do an amazing job.
Always, yep.
And I trust that it's going to be a great box. So as far as putting it on and listening to it, I know Yam will be there. Like, I'm down with it. It's going to be a great.
Thank you, Michael McDonald.
You're welcome. But when it comes to like sitting there and going, Giles has never given us Frankenstein's yet.
Correct.
Can you get a 3 or 4 disc set out of Let It Be without giving us Frankenstein's? I just don't know. I genuinely don't know.
Probably.
I'm going through I'm going through the 30 days in my head because I got to be honest. I mean, I don't look.
Then maybe not.
I don't know them cold, but I'm saying like I know that material really well.
It's a lot of the same stuff.
It's a lot of the same stuff over and over. There are a couple of full takes. Do we want the fast two of us? Hell yeah.
Yes.
I know
Yes,
we're
we
going to
need
get that.
That we need.
To me, I wouldn't mind a CD that just said, like the way they have the Esher demos, I wouldn't mind a CD that just says Sweet Apple Tracks. Just give me like the 2-album set of Sweet
It's
Apple
been done
Tracks
before.
that we grew up with, that some bootlegger who had access to about 8 or 9 hours worth of material compiled that from. Okay, he had a bunch of mono reels and he put that together and it was wonderful.
Yes.
And you got Tennessee and Commonwealth. Do you need Commonwealth for history? Yes, you do.
No, but the
Damn
problem
well
I
you
think
do.
with
And no
Commonwealth,
Pakistanis.
right? But I have a feeling they're not going to do it. They don't want that being misconstrued.
But Rob, it's all about history and context.
I know it's about
if they
history,
don't
but
put
still,
that out, I'm gonna kind of label them chicken shit.
I wouldn't do it if that was
Why?
my record, because we know what the story is.
But there's a booklet. Rob,
Right.
this stuff's not getting played on the radio. It's not like
I
somebody's
know
gonna
that, but
randomly
you know what it
play it on
reminds
the
me
radio.
of? It
Correct.
reminds me of, the movie Bob Roberts,
Yeah.
Tim Robbins.
Yeah.
He did not put out a soundtrack to that because he didn't want it to be misinterpreted. He only wanted to stay within the movie. And there's a lot of, if you listen away from the movie, you can see people saying, hey, I agree with that. And they're not the good people.
But Rob, it's
It's the
I know what
Beatles.
you're
a
saying.
lot of
I know
years later.
this is history versus is
And
it
it's
necessary?
But it's a whole lot of years later. There's nobody, and the truth is, you've also got millions of people like us who, if somebody does pull it out of context, online, internet, they're going to get bitch slapped really quickly.
Or
Yeah, I
at
know
least
that.
educated, not bitch slap, educated.
Well, it
We
depends
hope
on
it's
why
educated.
they do it. If people are using it, you see some white supremacist
Right.
group pick it up, they're going to get slammed down really hard. They're not going to
Yeah,
get
but that's
Right.
why you wouldn't maybe do it if
Well,
you're
and
Apple.
Apple might be careful about that. I mean, we know how they
I-
are.
I would be.
But
I'd be.
how do you not include Commonwealth and no Pakistanis to get back?
I think you write about it, but you don't put it in there.
Yeah.
I think you're right,
I know
Rob.
where you're coming from, Tony. I'm with you on that, but I'm also looking at how they're going to look at it.
I agree.
You know,
with you.
the Beatles are the peace and love band. Give peace a chance.
And
We love
also-
everyone.
Yeah,
It's
but also,
karma.
Rob, they in the movie,
Even those were John Lennon songs. I know that.
in the movie for 8 days a week, they prided themselves on with the segregation bit.
Right.
So do you reverse that thinking by putting out Commonwealth?
Even though it was meant as a joke.
Tongue firmly.
and
No one's
sarcasm.
gonna, in context, no one's going to know it was a joke.
No, in
Right, that's why I
context,
wouldn't
they
put it
will
in.
know.
But I'm not so sure they will
No, in context, it is definitely, if you know your
if
history,
you write
you know
about it.
it's
If
going to
it's
be
just
in
on
the
a
booklet.
CD,
That's-
it's not.
You hit my point, Mitch. That's my point. My
Correct.
point being that
You need to write about it and then play it.
it's
if
going to
you
be
do-
in the booklet.
But if someone buys it, Tony, and they're not reading the booklet, because a lot of people don't read the booklet. All right, a lot of people flip through the pictures and go, "Yay," and that's fine. But if you're not reading the booklet and you're reading exactly what that leads up to and why it leads up to that, then you're listening to it out of context, even though you have a book in front of you, and it may be shocking, and you may never read the book.
But it's
Now,
a little bit of history. If you hear
Well,
him,
exactly. Let me just say, Tony, you're teaching at CW Post about the history of the Beatles, or Ken Womack's teaching the history of the Beatles at Montclair. You bring this up and you play it to your students. Monmouth, I'm sorry. You play it to the students. In that situation, they will understand what the Beatles were singing about and how you're teaching.
Right.
It's
Yeah, but
the idiot who doesn't know that this was not to be taken seriously. It was to poke fun at Enoch Powell, whatever the guy's name was.
yeah. But but if you listen to Paul, even if you listen to Paul's voice,
Right.
it drips with sarcasm.
It does.
Drips with, and I don't think there's anybody who could listen to it and then say, "Oh no, I know what he was really saying there." I really genuinely think that anything you hear of that, that he's not taking this seriously, or he's not.
I agree with you.
all right,
I'm just thinking about other people.
In the instance of time, let's just keep going.
Well, go ahead.
Question: if you've got trouble, you brought it up before, Tony. Interesting, do we need it?
Oh, definitely.
Why?
Because it was actually a pretty good song, but for 1965, it was wrong.
If You Got Troubles?
Yeah, I love that song. It has a great riff. It's not a bad song.
It doesn't go
anywhere. He even says, take it, anybody.
Right, I know, but the problem was it came out in 65. If they'd given that to, Jerry and the Pacemakers or Billy J in 63, that might be a hit.
That's a song where context. That's a song where context actually hurts it.
Right.
Yes. You know why? Because let's put it in context. They were doing Help. All right.
Right.
And If You've Got Trouble, and that means a lot. We're recorded in the Help sessions.
Right.
Okay. So you know where their minds were at,
because they're recording "I Need You." You've got to hide your love away.
Right. I agree.
Right. You're going to lose that girl, and all those others. Even I've just seen a face. And Yesterday and all those songs, and now you're going to do If You Got Trouble, and that means a lot. So in context,
toss that to the Hollies.
Yeah, no, you're right. I agree. You give it to someone else, but I like both of those songs actually. I think they have a good feeling, and the fact that 2 songs within a couple of days for the Help album got rejected says a lot about where the Beatles were going. But then again, they did a cover of Dizzy Miss Lizzy with a mistake in it.
But they didn't. But you have to remember,
If You Got Troubles over Dizzy Miss Lizzy.
I wouldn't. Here's the thing, though. They also recorded Wait and didn't put it on Help.
Right.
But they thought well enough of it that they put it on Rubber Soul.
Right, but they also needed a song too. So that was.
But why didn't they take If You've Got Trouble and put it on Rubber Soul?
Those 2 songs don't fit on Rubber Soul at all.
And I'm going to throw this out there again. If You've Got Troubles was unreleased and you read about it, you'd still want it.
Oh, definitely. And you'd actually say his
because of the myth. You'd want it because, like we said in the beginning, the myth of it all.
So where I'm going is I'm happy that we have it out. I'm happy that we have the history. History ruins it as a song for me in a way.
Yes.
I look at it and think to myself, had I read they wrote this in 63 and figured they'd get around and trying it in 65, or had I read they were going to go back to this one and rearrange it and try it again and time didn't allow, I would have been like, okay. But as the song is, it's fun. I don't skip it.
No, but think about like One After 909 in 1963. It's a nice version, but the version from the rooftop is like, holy crap, that's
But
much
again,
better.
You're making the point, Rob. That song we need because you know what?
Yeah.
Because they did it later on in a different way.
I agree.
And so that song I think we need to show where the Beatles were at in 63, and they said, we're not doing that. But they said, listen, we are much more adult and mature as musicians now, and we can take that old piece of crap, and I'm not saying it's a piece of crap.
No.
I'm just saying they might think, well, we could take that old piece of crap and make it a good rocker and put it on the roof.
Tongue-in-cheek, rock it. Put tongue-in-cheek, rock it out.
Right.
Now, but I'm going to throw one out. You jump into, I hate jumping back to Let It Be, but the one that I shake my head and I wonder what place it's going to have, if any, is every single time, Mailman, Bring Me No More Blues, especially because in the liner notes, they keep referring to how in-depth the Beatles knew the Buddy Holly catalog. I understand that they did an obscure B-side, but you know what? They do it badly. They sound like they're all on heroin. they do it poorly. They don't know the words.
Well, it's also re-edited too. That was one of those.
It's a terrible
Jeff
edit.
edits.
All right. Also, too, on the anthology, the Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite edit is terrible.
Yes.
When they bring, it's just absolutely terrible.
But don't forget, it's 1995, and the technology is different. If Giles did it today, it would be different.
Yes, but if I had a razor blade and scotch and tape in 1982, I still would have done a better edit on it.
Let's talk about 12-bar original.
Oh.
That came out. I know. And it said, the Beatles were a jam band. No, they weren't.
Did it ever say the Beatles were? Nobody ever.
No, but I mean, they wanted us to hear that they were a jam band or attempting to be a jam band at that time in 1966. And I got to tell you something. They ain't no jam band.
What? The Beatles.
Oh, sorry, right. They were no jam band.
No. No,
They were hardly a jam band. They were a great band, but they could not just sit there and jam.
I have to be honest. 12 Bar Original is 12 Bar Original and Mailman Bring Me No More Blues are two of the completed Outtakes songs that I could certainly have lived without.
There you go. So
Now,
should they have been released?
I have Mailman in context played during the 30 days. Just
That's
the
a
version
different
that they
story.
did, that was melded into the one that they put out, with the weird dubbing and whatever it was called.
Right.
But 12 Bar Original, if you gave me like that whole session and I heard it once on a bootleg, I would have gone, well, that was a fun bootleg to buy, but I'll never play it again.
But see, Tony, I agree. In context, history hurts that song, 12 Bar Original. Look where they were at that point, and then they did that.
Anyway, one of the things about that song is they did it twice the same exact way. Now, we know that because of bootlegs, and we also know it's long. So when it comes to the use of editing, judicial editing that George Martin did, he turned it into a nice 2.5-minute song where you don't really notice, well, you sort of notice, but you don't really notice that it's borrowed from some Booker T and the MG song.
True.
Well, they tried to be Booker T and the MGs. Well, they said they were trying to be.
Yeah, but think about it. They did it twice the same way, both 6 minutes, and then they didn't go back to it. Why they did it for Rubber Soul, for something they never really did an instrumental at that time, and all of a sudden, boom. Now, we've heard the bootlegs, and the 6 minutes is painful. It doesn't really go anywhere. The 2.5 minutes, I like the 2.5 minutes. It's much better, and it doesn't waste my time.
Oh, it does for me.
It does for me.
It does. It does.
It does for me.
It really does.
Original timing was 6:42. It was done the same day as What Goes On.
Right.
Which doesn't say much. So do we all agree that 12 Bar Original, okay, we heard it. Rob, I know you like it, but it's not something that was totally necessary, was it?
No.
Okay.
But at the same time, if you're doing the anthologies, this is where you put it, until they do the box set of Rubber Soul, and if they include a full-length version of 12 Bar Original, then it becomes a little different. And maybe they do that. Who knows? We don't know.
And you're right, Rob. That's the perfect place for it, though. A box set of Rubber Soul.
Right.
Because then that piece of dreck, in my opinion, is put in context. Like Tony always says, context. So in Anthology, it's out of context, totally out of context.
Well, the whole song is out of context.
You're out of context. This whole courtroom is out of
Yeah.
But think about it. Imagine you're recording. I've just seen a face and all these other stuff. Not that. I'm sorry. You won't see me, and you just did this weird instrumental.
Yeah. Think for yourself, and then you come up with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a strange way of the thinking, and this is where the history part comes in too. What was the thought process that said, well, geez, we're not going to do anything with this? I can see George Martin saying, well, boys, 6 minutes is way too long for an instrumental that doesn't go anywhere.
Can I?
In 1965.
Can I throw a question out there?
Sure.
Yeah.
What if 12 Bar Original isn't actually finished? In other words, they each got an acetate cut of the track. If you think about it, what if that track had a really fun, funky piano part over it?
Well,
what if it was like what's that?
Then release that.
But it never happened.
Yeah, or maybe they were going to write words to it and never, there was the backing track.
You can't write words to it.
But I can see where you're going with that, but we've never heard anything much about that song. I mean,
right.
To me, you have to include it on Anthology too. It's like, we were just talking about, if it wasn't on there, we'd be upset. So, but I know what you're talking about. It's not the greatest instrumental world, but I was glad it was cut down. This is where I like what George Martin did.
If we do a variation on the movie Yesterday, and the song 12 Bar Original was never known about, would we have missed it?
No.
And that's my point. We don't get Carnival of Light, but we get 12 Bar Original.
But it's 2 minutes. Carnival Light's 12 minutes. What are you going to?
So what? So they couldn't edit that? They edited it from 6 to 2. They could give us an edited Carnival.
Maybe Paul didn't want it that edited. Maybe he's proud of the 12-minute version.
So I just think that, they picked.
Rob's right, though. They wouldn't have. Paul would not have gone for an edit of Carnival of Light.
Why did he go for an edit of 12 Bar?
Because 12 Bar Original was just a bunch of guys wanking in the studio. To him, Carnival of Light was something that he actually created.
Okay.
Yeah, that's and it was also for a hip show, and there's a lot of credibility with Carnival of Light that Paul talks about.
Credibility with 12 Bar Original. There's none.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean. 12 Bar Original was a throwaway, and why they did it during Rubber Soul and where they did it, I don't know.
Right.
But I can understand Paul being proud of Carnival of Light. Wasn't he supposed to make a film based on the song?
Yes, he was going to do that a few years ago.
Yeah.
They were going to give us like No, they
based
were going
on
to give
Linda's
us
photos.
images. Yeah, Linda's images.
Oh, wow.
And put that in the back, and it never happened.
Yeah. So
I think, he was just, he probably got voted down because it's still a Beatles track, and he can't do it. If they say no, and listen, if the other three say no, can't do it.
I'm raising my hand on that one.
You can raise.
Inner Light is allowed to be on the Wonderwall music soundtrack.
it's a different take.
It is.
It's still a Beatles song.
I agree.
It's still a Beatles song. That's
again,
allowed to be, but Paul's not allowed to put out Carnival of Light if he wishes to.
We don't know the legalities of it. We don't.
It's probably a friggin', not to be funny, it's probably a Lennon-McCartney composition.
But think about, and this is something else. Remember when John was going to take You Know My Name, Look Up the Number, and What's the New Mary Jane, and put it out as an A and B side? And the Beatles said, no, those are Beatles songs. You can't do that. And that's why there's an edit on You Know My Name, Look Up the Number, because he wanted to make that a single. That's why it was in mono. But the full-length version, which the grumbling, which is on the single, was faded down because George was angry. He thought it was too much.
Yeah. No,
so it's not the full-length version that we know and love, the 6-minute version that we've heard on Boots, but because the last 5 seconds were faded down.
Yeah, but
those aren't allowed to be Plastic Ono Band songs.
And that's also got a bad edit.
Who knows?
It does. It's got a bad edit. It
does, but you know what? They were trying to make a single out of it. So
no, but I mean the final one. I'm talking about the extended one has a bad edit.
The extended one, yeah.
It goes dang, dang. It's got two. It could have. It was supposed to be spliced to a resolve, and it's not.
Yeah, well.
Anyway, but whatever. Anyway.
But it's the way to look at it is I'm happy it's out, but at the same time, is it super important on certain songs? Yes, or on certain songs, no. To do a cut down of all the anthology to make it like one disc would be a tough thing to do because
but
what would you could take out when we leave? You
could make a really nice 2-disc set of studio outtakes.
True. Okay,
like you said, Mitch, separate for the live stuff.
Yeah,
live stuff, another story entirely.
Yeah,
you couldn't. They didn't want to duplicate songs on the anthology. Yeah. Truth be told, at this point now, again, it's back to this idea that hard drive space doesn't cost much.
Right, but the part of it also is that the Beatles it's like the Dead have their picks. Whatever whoever their archivist now does the picks.
Yeah,
and that's like a thing, a club you join.
Yes.
So not everyone can buy them in the store or anything. You have to actually just sign up. I can't see the Beatles doing that with their catalog.
No, I can't either. I don't.
As much as we would love it because we could have access to stuff that we'd like to hear, but a lot of it's already come out anyway. That March 5th, 1963 tape's a fascinating insight to how a song builds up and how it creates.
Right, but is everybody going to want 50 takes of Thank You Girl, 50 takes of I Saw Her Standing There? I don't know.
Right.
I'm happy.
I don't know either. It's like there was a boot that came out that literally the disc was Blackbird, all the takes of Blackbird, not all of them, but most of them.
Yeah.
And you know what? The first half, it's really fascinating. But then it's like, okay, you see what Paul's trying to do, but it just keeps going and going.
It's different when you have a song like Strawberry Fields where you get the different takes and it's leading to the end, and each take is fascinating because it's a different aspect of what John was thinking, and then George Martin put it all together.
Right,
but
that's true.
When it's Blackbird, it's just Paul's vision 30 times, and it's okay, nice, but if you get the evolution of a song, and a true evolution of a song like "And I Love Her," where they went electric, and then you heard, like Tony mentioned earlier in the show, then you get the final version. If you get where they're going, that to me is essential. But if you just get like we said, 8 days a week, the ooh, it's a totally different beginning. That's different. But if you just get Yes It Is, and it's just an early take of Yes It Is, Frankensteined in with the original release version, to me, I don't need that.
I didn't like
even I'm Down. I mean, I'm Down was nice, but again, Frankensteined into the released version, okay. But, even yesterday, the verses were switched.
I'm Down.
Yeah. Oh, no, it wasn't Frankenstein. You're right. But even yesterday, or You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, they're nice, interesting takes, but again, there weren't anything different.
Right.
Norwegian Wood was definitely different. So that we need. But so, are we getting a little off topic here? But I think in general, it really does depend on the historical aspect of it. And some people were saying it's the Beatles, everything is history. I don't agree with that. I know the Beatles were the incredible band, arguably the best band that ever lived and played, arguably. But, do we need everything? I don't need to hear if Paul is taking a piss and you go, "Oh, that sounded musical." I don't need to hear that. I'm joking, but I'm not. Because to me, 12-bar original is them taking a piss.
Right.
For 6 minutes.
Right. The one thing that I can't help but think about, though, is sort of kind of like channeling a lot of this into a couple of different kind of categories.
Go ahead.
You have a period early on where they're coming into the studio, they're extremely excited. It's all new. Everything that they do is creating. They're working together. The four minds are firing together.
Right.
George Martin's aiding them and abetting them, and they're doing these really cool things. Then it steps to another level where the recording studio starts to become a tool, and they're now discovering how to add new sounds, new ideas. So the songs don't just grow in their arrangement. They start to grow in what contributes to making the song a song, what studio trickery or studio ideas or tape manipulation or new added sounds will take a song to a new level. So to me, that contributes to all the history. Once you get to later in their careers where George Martin isn't so much involved and they're in the studio and I always talk about the drugs, but then there's more drugs and there's more, and they're not thinking like the four-headed monster anymore, a lot of it starts to become wanking.
But Tony, I think we've gotten a little off topic because that stuff is all release stuff and outtakes of released stuff. I think what where we want to go back to is, do we need to hear stuff that's unreleased, like the You Know What to Do, like the 12-bar, well, not 12-bar, the Carnival, like the 27-minute Helter Skelter. I think by releasing the stuff they have, it's been a mixed bag.
It has, but that's my point.
What they consider to be historical versus need or want or curiosity. So if they're not sure, then how can we be sure? And I don't mean to sound like the Rascals, but how can we be sure?
But I think that's my point, though. I mean, to that point, I think you've got to look at each era, and figure out if you're gonna release any more that's unreleased in a box. I mean, again, you and I talked about it. It would be cool to see a 64 box, a 65 box.
Yeah, right.
But do you need 24 takes of Thank You Girl? You probably need takes 1 and 2, 1 in the middle, and 1 at the end.
And at the end, yeah.
But it depends on how you want to show. Like on Let It Be, one of the things I hope they do, and I've mentioned this before, I would like to see how one song starts and then 3 or 4 takes and then gets to the final version. In the movie, not on the record. Not on the vinyl. No, I mean, not on the CD. I don't want to hear a Frankenstein on the CD. If you have,
I hope not.
if this is a 6 CD set, which could easily be, as you know, Tony.
Yeah, but I don't
know what it's going to be,
I don't want
Rob.
to hear 4 Let It Be's in a row, though, Rob.
No,
Well,
I do not.
No way.
Well, that's what Sweet Apple Tracks was. That was
no, it
side
wasn't.
one.
Not at all. Not at all.
Side two was 4 Let It Be.
That's another show.
It's a 7-minute. It's a 7 or 8 minute him teaching them "Let It Be."
Right.
It's not that plus another 3 takes of "Let It Be."
Okay, you're right about that. Yes, you're right.
No, I
Anyway.
don't. I don't want to hear that. No.
You know what the problem is, though? The whole concept of the anthology, while it combines a lot of stuff we've never heard before and some we have heard, it's never going to be as easy to listen to as, say, Revolver or Pepper or Rubber Soul. And that's part of it, too, because there are reasons why these versions didn't make it.
And that's what the Beatles said. That's what
Right.
I forgot who said it. They said there's a reason they weren't released. And you know what? So maybe we leave it at that. Or do we say, screw you, Beatles, you're historical now, and we need to hear it. So on that note.
When they did the anthology, let's say they didn't do 6 discs. Let's say they did 2. And we'd be kind of angry. Well, I would be.
I guess.
Depends on what we knew about. Depends.
We
on
would
what
never
knew about.
know.
We'd never know. We'd be looking back at it 25 years later in hindsight going, gee, I wonder if there's more. If
Correct.
We'd like to have it now. But back
If they gave us the one take of 8 days a week where they go, ooh, and we didn't get the other one, well, then how would we know?
Well, they were that's showing they're having fun in the studio. And I think that was part of it, too. To show the Beatles were having fun. And there's a lot of good moments when they are. Yes. It's a lot of fun. This boy and Paul broke the glass. Paul broke the glass before you got to hide your love away. That's fun stuff.
But is it necessary?
But the breaking the glass is cute. But as Mitch was saying, do you then need the take of You've Got to Hide Your Love Away?
Or do they Frankenstein did they Frankenstein that little chatter onto the release track?
Or did they just put that at the beginning of something else? We never would have known the difference. It's the same way Queen
they did with BBC.
Right.
But at the same time, we all, fly on the wall. That's basically what that type of stuff is. Listening in, and we all said, we're not thrilled with that. So
and you're making my point. I don't think if we didn't hear John say Paul's broken the glass, or the laughing version of, someone brought up, and it was a good point. They said some of the anthology was played on the radio and in supermarkets. And if you're listening to anthology stuff, outtakes, and you're in the supermarket and you hear the laughing version of And Your Bird Could Sing, and you don't know the real version, and you're hearing that and you're thinking, that's crap.
That's true, and that's part of the history thing where if for Beatle fans, they know why they're laughing or why it's there.
But the mass fan doesn't.
Right. And
if you're in a supermarket hearing the Beatles laugh, you're thinking, why did that ever get out?
Right, and the thing that gets me about
valid point.
You brought up And Your Bird Can Sing. There is a great track under the laughing. Yes. There is such a great track there that you're like, why? I understand why they put it on there, but there's such a great track under there.
Because that's a different track.
The version on Revolver is amazing. It's such a different take.
But if they took the laughing out and they just gave us the Birds-like track, that would be essential because there would be a different version of And Your Bird Can Sing.
Right.
Now, yes, it's fun to hear the laughing and everybody giggles too. We know that. But if they didn't have that and we never got it, we wouldn't know. And then we'd say, wow, they could have made it either way.
But
and then that's history.
But that's why God invented bootlegs.
Well, that's right. And someone, what's the thing where you take the needle? Tony, what's the thing where you take the needle and you reverse it? So
phased it. They phased it.
Someone phased out the laughing.
Yeah, it's
put
been
it out
done
there.
a bunch of times.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. On that note,
one more question.
Here, you have to, Columbo.
My next question is: there was never an Anthology 4. Should there be another collection of outtakes to be put out there?
No,
I don't think so.
Not in that format, Rob. We're past it. It's 25 years later.
Okay, so
you just call me a bastard.
You like it better when it's part of the box set. You like it when it's part of the White Album and Pepper and
I
if
do,
they ever get to Revolver.
Just give me a goddamn download. Just stop with enough with the physical. Like I need another disc. I need another disc. Like I need a hole in my head.
You can easily say Anthology 4 is coming out December 25th for Christmas, and it's coming out download only. Here you go. It's $5.
The problem with the downloads. The problem with the downloads.
No problem with the downloads. There are
no. Whoa. The problem with the downloads to the record companies is they don't make the money on them that a box set makes. A box set is $120.
Rob, you didn't say
you also don't have to manufacture a download.
Rob, you didn't say a box set. You said a single disc of an anthology.
Well, no, I'm talking about how like all these box sets come out and they make a lot of money on them. That's part of it too.
Maybe.
The money is made. They have to make some money to pay for this.
But you didn't say that. If they put out another box set of Outtakes, you say fine.
Well, I said there should be the Anthology 4. I mean, personally, I would include some other guy from the Cavern Club, the Acetate of Kansas City from the Cavern Club, that tape, that 5-song track thing that Ringo's playing.
But you can't call it Anthology 4 because it's not in a chronology. You call it the Beatles found object.
The Beatles lost and found.
Beatles lost and found. The Beatles release me.
The Beatles scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Beatles Fab Four Free for All. Why not? Just let them call it that.
I would love it. We'll even let
one more thing, Chris. One more thing. There has been a lot of bootlegs with the variation of the anthology. They start off with like Star Club tapes, and they continue through, and it's always a 2 CD set. And those bootlegs have been very fun to collect if you're into the anthology mentality, which I am. I understand the download thing, Tony. I'm all for it. But you know what? One person's going to download it, then ship it off to his friends, and then
one person's going to rip the CD and ship it off to their friends. There's no difference. There's no difference. It's if you're gonna pirate the stuff, you're gonna pirate whether it's on.
Vive la différence.
Yeah, I mean it's the point being you have so much versatility with downloads and keeping things in. I hear the arguments people saying, "Well, you make it a download, it falls out of context right away." It falls out of context anywhere now. If you make it a download in a file, in a folder, in a package with an artwork or with a text file, there it is. There's the info. But it's just, to me, it's just, I'm happy with box sets. They're beautiful objects. They're objet d'art. Great. But a single CD of more stuff, meh. Like, I don't need it.
It's probably a 2 CD set, so.
Even still, meh. Anyway.
All right, so I guess we all agree that we disagree. I mean, we don't know where to go with this yet. No, I mean, I'm not kidding. We just, to each his own, and
we agree on some things and disagree on others.
Right. We could agree to disagree, and that's fine.
We all think 12-bar
There
originals
ain't no good guy. There ain't no bad.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, my
Thank you,
Lord.
Dave Mason.
Anyway, on that note, we hope you've enjoyed this show. I mean, we don't even know if we're going to release this show. No. Maybe it'll stay unreleased and you won't want to hear it.
We still have
Well, that's what we should do. We should not release this show, tease it, and then like a year from now release it and say, oh, this is our
I think 25 years from now, we should release
well,
on a box
I'll be dead. You'll have to do it, Tony, because I'll be dead.
We have like the little bit about 12-bar original, and then we say, oh, we put that out. Oh, that's all we're putting out right now.
That's it. That's all we're putting out.
I don't think so. This is wait, time out. This is our Carnival of Light.
There you go.
On that note, I have been your moderator for tonight's show, and I'm Mitch Axelrod saying take care, bye-bye, and joining me have been
Rob Leonard
and
Tony Traguardo.
And we will see you real soon. We will.
Fab 4 Free For All was edited and produced by Tony Traguardo at Word of Mouth Studios in Westbury, New York. The opening and closing theme is Not Alone by Barry Waller. Be sure to visit our website at www.fab4all.com.